giving us this statement, Abbe Lowell, which I just read. He just handed the statement over to us.
As another anonymous source. He's blaming another anonymous source.
Well,
right?
we have several sources in this case. Certainly the story is not based on one source. And we also know, Wolf, that several people that have gone before the special counsel have been asked these questions.
What about the meetings specifically? You have some details on how these meetings unfolded?
Well, we don't have our own information. The New York Times and others have done stories about discussions that Jared Kushner had. One in particular was Anbank, which is a Chinese insurance company. They also owned the Waldorf Astoria in Manhattan. There were discussions with them about potentially investing in the 66 property. They pulled out, surprisingly, at the last minute, they pulled out. There was also a Qatari investor who was going to invest in the building. That person then pulled out as well.
The whole notion of what Mueller might be up to right now, it raises lots of questions. What is he, based on what we're hearing, what is he trying to figure out as far as the overall Russia probe is concerned?
Well, honestly, that's not entirely clear to us. We know that these questions have been asked of people. We know that investigators have been looking at this. And one person basically cautioned us to say this is they're exploring. Perhaps maybe investigators are just exploring here. But nonetheless, it is significant that these kinds of questions have been posed to people who have appeared before the special counsel. And it's not just about financial dealings, perhaps, but it's also just in general about Jared Kushner's contacts with foreigners, with foreign nationals during the transition.
And what have we heard from the Qatari company involved or the Chinese company involved?
So we've reached out to both, and we never heard back from the Qataris, and Anbank, a representative for them, a spokesperson, declined to comment.
Based on everything you're hearing, Shimon, could Kushner face any charges?
That's not clear. There's no indication that in this case, because of this, that Kushner is a target in the investigation.
Shimon Prokopez, good reporting, you and your team. Thank you very, very much. President Trump is heading back to Washington after spending the weekend in Florida, stewing over the special counsel's indictment of Russians for meddling in the U.S. election. Just a little while ago, he fired off the latest tweet of an extraordinary tirade. Let's go to our senior White House correspondent, Pamela Brown. Pamela, the president has been he's very angry, going ballistic, some would say. What are the results? What's behind his outburst?
Yeah, that's right, Wolf. The tweet storm continues into today, and the president stayed inside of his Mar-a-Lago resort most of this holiday weekend, stewing over TV coverage about Russia and the FBI, and it didn't take long before he unleashed on Twitter, taking aim at his political foes, including his predecessor, but notably not Russia.
President Trump began his President's Day at his Florida golf course after deciding to avoid the links Saturday and Sunday in the aftermath of last week's mass shooting. After golfing, he took to Twitter, blaming his predecessor, tweeting, "Obama was president up to and beyond the 2016 election. So why didn't he do something about Russian meddling?" The president has spent much of the weekend raging on Twitter at his Mar-a-Lago resort, watching cable news and getting riled up by his sons Don Jr. and Eric, who urged their father to take a tougher stance with the FBI after it was revealed the agency failed to follow up on a tip about the Florida shooter. Very sad that the FBI missed all of the many signals sent out by the Florida school shooter. "This is not acceptable," the president tweeted. "They are spending too much time trying to prove Russian collusion with the Trump campaign. There was no collusion." In the wake of special counsel Robert Mueller's indictment of 13 Russians for meddling in the 2016 election, the president appears to be lashing out at everyone but Russia. First, he fired off a tweet suggesting he'd been vindicated in the Russia probe, pointing to comments made by the Deputy Attorney General. But Rod Rosenstein never definitively said there was no collusion, merely that this specific indictment does not include collusion.
There's no allegation in this indictment that any American had any knowledge. And the nature of the scheme was that the defendants took extraordinary steps to make it appear that they were ordinary American political activists.
The top Democrat overseeing the House intelligence investigation, Adam Schiff, seizing on the indictments of the 13 Russian nationals as clear-cut evidence of Russian meddling.
It ought to put to rest for anyone, including the president, who continues to call this a witch hunt, that the evidence is now overwhelming and unequivocal, and we need to move to protect ourselves from Russian interference in elections that are coming up.
The president choosing instead to focus on comments Schiff made about the Obama administration, Trump tweeting, "Finally, little Adam Schiff is now blaming the Obama administration for Russian meddling in the 2016 election. Obama was president, knew of the threat, and did nothing."
I've said all along that I thought the Obama administration should have done more. None of that is an excuse for this president to sit on his hands. Knowing what he knows now, knowing what our intelligence community knows now in this excruciating detail about the Russian effort, it is inexplicable that the President of the United States continues to sit on sanctions that Congress passed, that Congress wants to enforce against Russia over this interference.
For its part, the White House is avoiding specifics.
Can we expect the president to have additional action against this country who clearly doesn't fear or respect us?
Well, I won't get ahead of what the president is prepared to announce, but I wouldn't for one second say that his foreign policy has not been effective.
Trump also claiming he never said Russia did not meddle, contradicting himself from the past.
Could have been a lot of people interfered. I said it very simply. I think it could very well have been Russia, but I think it could well have been other countries.
But the president claims the multiple Russia investigations are satisfying Putin's plan, tweeting, "If it was the goal of Russia to create discord, disruption, and chaos within the U.S., then with all of the committee hearings, investigations, and party hatred, they have succeeded beyond their wildest dreams. They are laughing their asses off in Moscow. Get smart, America." This as his deputy White House press secretary Hogan Gidley deflected blame on Russia by accusing Democrats and the media of dividing the nation.
There are two groups that have created chaos more than the Russians, and that's the Democrats and the mainstream media, who continued to push this lie on the American people for more than a year. And quite frankly, Americans should be outraged by that.
And the president is expected to arrive back at the White House within the hour. This as demonstrators spent the day outside of the White House engaging in a lie-in, calling for a stricter gun control. We are told by a source familiar that the president spent part of the weekend at Mar-a-Lago getting input from his friends there on the gun issue. But it's unclear, Wolf, what will happen next in terms of concrete steps to address the issue.
All right, Pamela, thank you very much. Pamela Brown reporting. Joining us now, Democratic Congressman Andre Carson of Indiana. He's a member of the Intelligence Committee. Congressman, thanks for joining us.
What a pleasure. Thank you, Wolf.
All right, let's begin with the breaking news. You just heard it here on CNN. The special counsel, Robert Mueller, he's looking at Jared Kushner's financial dealings, including contacts with investors in China and Qatar, for that matter. Is that a subject of interest for the House Intelligence Committee as well?
Well, we've not yet gotten to that point. However, I will say that Mr. Kushner is a businessman, obviously, but I think it's kind of suspicious for Mr. Kushner to have met with this particular Chinese investor a week after Trump's election. So might he be leveraging his position with the administration and with the Trump campaign effort to solidify a business deal? We don't know. Stay tuned.
Some have raised the concerns, as you well know, Congressman, that Kushner's business interests could pose a very serious conflict of interest, especially during his time running the presidential transition. He was deeply involved in that. Is there anything in particular that worries you?
Well, I'm always concerned when you have folks who are in federal positions misusing their authority. I think it's a concern for all of us. Sometimes it happens unknowingly, but I think in this case it could perhaps be deliberate. But we've yet to see. We're going to wait for Director Mueller's investigation and see where the House Intel Committee picks it up from there.
The president is sounding off on Twitter, as you know, in light of last week's indictments by Robert Mueller and his investigators against 13 Russians. He tweeted this. Let me put it up on the screen. Obama was president up to and beyond the 2016 election, so why didn't he do something about Russian meddling? A close quote. He's not only blaming, he's not the only one blaming the Obama administration. There have been others, including some Democrats, who've criticized former President Obama for not taking action against Russia sooner. Did the Obama administration, during its time in office until January 20th, 2017, drop the ball?
Well, I won't say they dropped the ball, but I think more could have been done. I think that the administration was cautious and a bit apprehensive, quite frankly. I think that their efforts could have been more focused and centered and more assertive but we can't look back and play Monday morning quarterback. I think it's important to look at the now. And I think that the Obama administration will admit themselves that more could have been done. I think President Obama has said it himself. But now we're focused on the Trump administration. And I think that these indictments show very clearly that this isn't a political witch hunt. This indictment is real. It's not about Republican or Democrat. This is good old law enforcement, and law enforcement is working. Unfortunately, we don't have the kind of relationship with Russia to bring those folks to the U.S., but the indictment is clear, and it sends a strong message that we will not tolerate Russian interference into our electoral system.
A lot of people agree with you. The Obama administration could have done more building up to the transition, the inauguration, but remember the president, he's been in office now for 13 months, and the question remains, what has he done in those 13 months to fight this Russian meddling in the U.S., which clearly continues as we speak right now, looking ahead towards the midterms and 2020. Some of the president's recent tweets, as you know, Congressman, also suggest he feels vindicated by last week's indictments against those 13 Russians for their role in election meddling. The Deputy Attorney General, Rod Rosenstein, noted that this particular indictment didn't necessarily implicate any Americans for witting involvement in the Russian scheme. In your view, is collusion still an open question?
Without question, I think so. I think that's why we have this wonderful three-pronged approach from both the House and Senate Intel committees and Director Mueller's special counsel effort to get to the bottom of this. And if wrongdoing hasn't occurred, then we can move forward with our lives and continue to work together in a bipartisan fashion to really focus on things that are important, Wolf, like infrastructure, improving our broken economy, rebuilding our education system, and doing things that really works for Americans, all Americans.
The president attacked the FBI on Twitter over the weekend for its failure to stop last week's high school massacre in Florida, blaming them for, quote, spending too much time trying to prove Russian collusion with the Trump campaign, close quote. What's your reaction to that?
Well, the FBI admitted that they could have done more, which I feel was noble for the FBI to admit that kind of thing during these times. But I also think that President Trump has a habit of blaming folks and not taking responsibility. And I think this kind of diversion tactic or red herring is really wearing thinly on the American people. I think now we have to focus on the crux of these recent discoveries, particularly the indictments, and see where we stand. Now is the time to not blame, but stand firmly as a leader. He made a campaign promise to lead our country. He's failing to do so.
Congressman Andre Carson, thanks so much for joining us.
Always a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Up next, we'll have more on our CNN exclusive as the special counsel's investigation looks into Jared Kushner's efforts to get foreign financing for his company during the presidential transition. And the Florida high school shooter appears in court as we learn about more warning signs that were missed and the family that sheltered him speaking out right now in shock and horror.
The Situation Room with Wolf Blitzer, brought to you by Otezla. Learn more at Otezla.com.
If you have moderate to severe plaque psoriasis, little things can be a big deal. That's why there's Otezla. Otezla is not an injection or a cream. It's a pill that treats psoriasis differently. With Otezla, 75% clear skin is achievable after just 4 months, with reduced redness, thickness, and scaliness of plaques. And the Otezla prescribing information has no requirement for routine lab monitoring. Don't use if you're allergic to Otezla. Otezla may cause severe diarrhea, nausea, or vomiting. Tell your doctor if these occur. Otezla is associated with an increased risk of depression. Tell your doctor if you have a history of depression or suicidal thoughts or if these feelings develop. Some people taking Otezla reported weight loss. Your doctor should monitor your weight and may stop treatment. Other side effects include upper respiratory tract infection and headache. Tell your doctor about all the medicines you take and if you're pregnant or planning to be. Otezla, show more of you.
So, that goal you've been saving for, you can do it.
We can do this.
At Fidelity, our online planning tools are clear and straightforward, so you can plan for retirement while saving for the things you want to do today.
She's nationally recognized for her compassion and care. He spent decades fighting to give families a second chance. But to help others, they first had to protect themselves.
I have AFib. Even for a nurse, it's complicated, and it puts me at a higher risk of stroke.
That would be devastating. I had to learn all I could to help protect myself.
Once I got the facts, my doctor and I chose Xarelto.
Xarelto, to help keep me protected.
Once daily Xarelto, a latest generation blood thinner, significantly lowers the risk of stroke in people with AFib not caused by a heart valve problem. It has similar effectiveness to warfarin.
Xarelto works differently.
Warfarin interferes with at least 6 blood clotting factors. Xarelto is selective, targeting just one critical factor, interacting with less of your body's natural blood clotting function. For AFib patients well managed on warfarin, there is limited information on how Xarelto compares in reducing the risk of stroke. Don't stop taking Xarelto without talking to your doctor, as this may increase risk of stroke. While taking, you may bruise more easily or take longer for bleeding to stop. It may increase your risk of bleeding if you take certain medicines. Xarelto can cause serious and in rare cases fatal bleeding. Get help right away for unexpected bleeding, unusual bruising, or tingling. If you've had spinal anesthesia, watch for back pain or any nerve or muscle-related signs or symptoms. Do not take Xarelto if you have an artificial heart valve or abnormal bleeding. Tell your doctor before all planned medical or dental procedures and before starting Xarelto about any conditions such as kidney, liver, or bleeding problems.
It's important to learn all you can
To help protect yourself from a stroke.
Talk to your doctor about Xarelto. There's more to know.
What's with him?
He's happy. Your family's finally eating vegetables, thanks to our Bird's Eye Voila skillet meals.
And they only take 15 minutes to make.
Ow!
Oh my.
Bird's Eye Voila. So veggie good.
Experience Lexus Safety System Plus Standard in the 2018 Lexus ES and ES Hybrid.
Take advantage of special President's Day offers now through the 28th on the 2018 ES 350.
Experience amazing at your Lexus dealer.
I've had muscle cramps for as long as I can remember. But now that I'm using TheraWorks Relief, they have stopped. This is the only thing in my entire life that has actually worked.
Get TheraWorks Relief today at TheraWorksRelief.com.
Liberty Mutual saved us almost $800 when we switched our auto and home insurance.
With Liberty, we could afford a real babysitter instead of your brother. Oh, that's my robe.
Is it?
When you switch to Liberty Mutual, you could save $782 on auto and home insurance and still get great coverage for you and your family. Call 1-888-875-3144 for a free quote today. You could save $782 when Liberty stands with you. Liberty Mutual Insurance.
Closed captioning brought to you by Garlic, cholesterol's natural enemy.
My cholesterol is borderline. I can worry about it or do something about it. Garlic helps maintain healthy cholesterol naturally, and it's odor-free and pharmacist recommended. Garlic.
We have much more ahead on the breaking news from the Russia investigation. We also are following new revelations of missed warning signs about the young man now facing 17 counts of premeditated murder in the Florida high school massacre. Nikolas Cruz briefly appeared in court today. Let's go to CNN's Brian Todd. He's working the story for us. Brian, what are you learning?
Wolf, we have new details tonight on disturbing information that a Florida child welfare agency had on the shooter a year and a half ago. And the family Nikolas Cruz stayed with in the weeks leading up to the shooting is now discussing what they knew about the killer. The family who took Nikolas Cruz in for 3 months says they had a monster living under their roof and they never knew it.
Everything everybody seems to know, we didn't know.
James and Kimberly Sneed, whose son was a friend of Cruz's, are telling news outlets they had no idea Cruz was capable of inflicting the kind of carnage he did, even though they knew he was depressed and knew he had an AR-15 style assault rifle in their house. They spoke to ABC's Good Morning America.
It seemed like you had no problem with him having a weapon.
No, not at all. He followed the rules.
He followed the rules.
Followed the rules.
They weren't allowed to be out if we weren't home or one of us wasn't home. And he knew that, and to our knowledge, he never had them out.
The attorney for the Sneeds tells CNN they were not aware of previous police incident reports saying the police had been to the Cruz house more than 20 times between 2011 and 2016 to check on multiple outbursts reported by his now deceased mother, including one incident where she said he'd hit her with a plastic vacuum cleaner hose. And the Sneeds lawyer says they were not aware of this report from the Florida Department of Children and Families, filed in November 2016, a year before the Sneeds took Cruz in. CNN has obtained a copy of the report detailing an in-home investigation of Cruz, indicating that the agency was aware of his posts on Snapchat of him cutting both of his arms. The report says Mr. Cruz is a vulnerable adult due to mental illness. He has depression, that he stated he plans to go out and buy a gun. But then the report concludes that his final level of risk is low because he lived with his mother and was receiving counseling.
Was that the right conclusion to make?
Maybe a year ago it was, but obviously that changed over this year time period where the mother passed away, and apparently he wasn't going to counseling anymore.
CNN reached out to the Florida Department of Children and Families to ask why they concluded that Cruz's level of risk was low. They didn't respond to our request. CNN has learned the shooter had obtained at least 10 firearms, all of them rifles. The Sneeds say Cruz deceived them.
Before he moved in, one of the stipulations is he had to get a gun safe. And we got a gun safe on the way back from Lantana from moving his stuff to our house.
And did he didn't have free access to this gun safe?
No. I thought I had the only key to the gun safe.
I think that's just one factor in a string of factors that caused this to happen, going all the way back to matching these different reports up, these 20 times that law enforcement had been out there or youth services had been out there visiting him.
Even though the Sneeds attorney says the family did not know about the Florida Department of Children and Families report, about the police reports on Nikolas Cruz, or about the school warnings on him, he says they did know that he was depressed, that he sought counseling, and that he'd been bullied at school. Given that, we pressed the attorney on why the Sneed family still allowed that AR-15 style rifle in their house. The lawyer says the Sneeds were sticklers for gun safety, that they believed they had taken all the precautions they could, and that the family did everything they could to steer the young man away from trouble. Wolf?
You know, Brian, I understand you're also hearing that the FBI tip last month, if it had been acted on, that tip could have tied a lot of this together.
It could have, Wolf. Our law enforcement analyst Art Roderick says if that tip the FBI received on January 5th had been passed on to its Miami field office, the agents there could have accessed that report from the Florida Department of Children and Families about his mental state. The FBI could have accessed the police reports and the school warnings. All of those dots could have been connected by the FBI. That missed tip, missing, the passing on of that to the field office, Wolf, you cannot understate how important that was.
Yeah, they did not connect the dots, and they got to learn from that, make sure it doesn't happen again. Brian, thank you very much. Brian Todd reporting. This week, CNN hosts a nationally televised town hall with the school massacres victims, classmates, parents, both of Florida senators, Bill Nelson and Marco Rubio, Florida Governor Rick Scott, and President Donald Trump. They declined the invitation to attend. Be sure to watch Stand Up. The students of Stoneman Douglas demand action this Wednesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern, right here on CNN. Coming up, we'll have more of this hour's breaking news about Special Counsel Robert Mueller's investigation and questions about Jared Kushner's business dealings during the presidential transition. Also breaking, the president resumes his tweet storm about Russia's election meddling with a new jab, this one directly at former President Obama.
The custom reserve suit from Joseph A. Bank. Custom details tailored from head to toe for a fit you can't find off the rack. Because confidence is a tradition that never goes out of style.
Looks great, honey.
Right? Sometimes you need an expert.
He does, and I don't anticipate that changing. It's clear that he has a massive inferiority complex about how statement that he makes. And he's not fulfilling his job as president, to state the obvious. He's so focused on his own narcissism that we're pointing fingers. We're stuck in the post game here of what Obama did or didn't do, rather than saying, okay, they meddled, what are we going to do now? We're under live attack, Wolf, and we're doing nothing about it.
One of his CIA directors says it's happening. It's a serious problem. The director of national intelligence says it. The head of the National Security Agency, his own national security advisor, General McMaster, a 3-star active duty general, was at a conference in Munich, said there's no question about it, to which the president publicly in a tweet rebuked his own national security advisor, General McMaster, forgot to say that the results of the 2016 election were not impacted or changed by the Russians, and that the only collusion was between Russia and crooked H. Hillary, the DNC and the Dems. Remember the dirty dossier, uranium speeches, emails, and the Podesta company. It's pretty amazing that he would publicly slam, humiliate his own national security advisor, an active duty lieutenant general.
I think it's incredibly striking, and I think it's very interesting. You hear this president say time and time again, no collusion, no collusion. He's maintained that. But if you look at the text of this indictment, and I think every American really should, it's rather accessible and incredibly detailed. It never says that. When you heard the Deputy Attorney General come out and speak about this, he didn't make any claims to whether there's collusion or not. Again, you see this president doing something that career staffers have warned makes it harder to do their jobs. He is casting doubt on not just law enforcement, on the intelligence communities, on the very people that Americans rely on to keep their country safe, and saying that their findings aren't valid. And that's just really scary.
Yeah, I'm wondering what's going to happen with General McMaster in the coming days and weeks right now. We'll watch that very closely. Everybody stand by. I'm going to ask you about another of the president's inflammatory tweets accusing the FBI of missing warnings about the Florida school massacre because agents were too busy with the Russia probe.
Are you hiring great people or hoping for great people?
I get more talented people through the door through Indeed than any other job search that I use.
Indeed delivers 6 times more hires than any other job site. It's no wonder over 3 million businesses use Indeed for hiring.
Indeed.com just gives me so many more qualified applicants to choose from.
Post a job in minutes, and Indeed will help you zero in on just the right candidates, so you can hire faster.
Nothing has ever been this easy, this simple, and this effective.
Plus, there are no upfront costs or long-term contracts.
Does it get any better than that? I don't think so.
To accelerate your hiring, Indeed offers premium placement to give your listing more exposure to relevant job seekers, which allows you to hire even faster. And right now, start your first job posting with free premium placement. Redeem now at Indeed.com/TV1. Search for greatness. Indeed, the world's #1 job site.
And we're back at the dealership with Stan. Locked in the price of a Jeep on the deal.
Look at him go.
All he has to do is pick it up.
Oh, and sign the contract.
Oh! And drop into the back room to play Spring. Boom!
It's on.
He's at $80.
120.
270.
600.
1250.
2,400 bucks.
Direct.
She's out of your league. You are better at this than any of us. Get close to me, American.
Are we going to become friends?
Is that what you want?
You're always one step ahead.
Make these men pay.
If she's compromised, she will be eliminated.
There's something we're not seeing.
Red Sparrow, rated R.
Do you have a life insurance policy you no longer need or can't afford? Now you can sell your policy for an immediate payment.
We bought life insurance when our kids were young, to protect their future.
Our young has just turned 40, and we no longer needed the coverage.
That got us to thinking about letting our policy go. So I did some research and called Coventry Direct. I learned that you could sell all or part of a life insurance policy, even a term life policy. Turns out, people have been selling policies like ours for the past 15 years. Who knew? We sold our policy. Now we have money to help with the medical bills.
And to add to our retirement.
If you have $100,000 or more of life insurance, you may be a candidate to sell your policy. Call 1-800-382-9600 or visit CoventryDirect.com for a free information packet. 1-800-382-9600. Coventry Direct, redefining insurance.
What's with him?
He's happy. Your family's finally eating vegetables, thanks to our Bird's Eye Voila skillet meals.
And they only take 15 minutes to make.
Ow!
Oh my.
Bird's Eye Voila, so veggie good.
Now ADT helps protect your family at home and on the go. With ADT Go, the new family mobile safety app and service. Get ADT Go for free with any ADT security system. ADT, always there, now, everywhere.
We're back with our experts. David Chalian, the president clearly has the overall Russia investigation very much on his mind right now, even when he's talking about the deadly shooting, the massacre in Florida last week. He tweeted this: "Very sad that the FBI missed all of the many signals sent out by the Florida school shooter. This is not acceptable. They are spending too much time trying to prove Russian collusion with the Trump campaign. There is no collusion. Get back to the basics and make us all proud." It's drawing, that tweet, a lot of criticism.
It is, and I think the criticism is spot on. What is he doing? First of all, it's factually untrue, just in terms of the way the FBI works. Obviously, Mueller can have a team of people from the FBI helping on the Russia probe, looking into it, and that has nothing to do with following up on tips. I think the president is right to say that the FBI needs to do a better job than they clearly were able to do in this scenario. But why would he, except for the fact that he is so consumed more about himself and his peril than he is for this community wrecked, these lives ruined through this tragedy, that to me is all that tweet says, is that he is more concerned about his potential political peril than he is about those families.
But you know, a lot of people have pointed out that before the president tweeted that, when it was late Saturday night, it had been on Fox News as a sort of a talking point all day long.
The president's tweets really do, Wolf, give us a window into what he's consuming, what he's doing when he's away from Washington, down in Florida. Look, I agree with David entirely. This is, of course, a stunning admission and a stunning failure by the FBI here that left 17 people dead in Florida. That said, the president is, again, making it about himself. He's acting as though the FBI can't walk and chew gum at the same time. And he's yet again making public critiques and rebukes of our nation's law enforcement agencies that these people say makes it more difficult for them to do their jobs, that it erodes confidence in the agencies for which they serve. And again, he's bringing it back to all about him instead of the people who died in Florida.
You know, Sam, what do foreign intelligence services think when they see this kind of development, when they suspect there may be some paranoia on the part of the president?
I think that Vladimir Putin and the Russian intelligence services are doing cartwheels right now because President Trump is doing their job for them. This tweet is rife with inaccuracies. It's pointing fingers internally. And it is entirely misleading. If you just go on the FBI website, Wolf, and look at the range of investigations they have underway, there are so many things that they do on a daily basis other than just investigating, quote unquote, Russian collusion and these horrific attacks that have occurred. Now, we have to be clear that President Trump's tweets are viewed as actual policy. And in the 4 years that I was at the White House, we spent so much time going over every word in public-facing statements by the president to look at unintended and intended consequences. So all the work that the National Security Council and agencies are doing is upended when the president doesn't coordinate with his team, issues these tweets, and in the case of Russia, makes a Russian's job a whole lot easier.
Yeah, and let's not forget there are 35,000 employees over at the FBI. They're working on a whole range of issues. I don't know how many, few dozen are probably working on the Russia investigation right now with Mueller, but that's another story. All right, guys, stand by. There's more news we're following, more breaking news. The special counsel Robert Mueller's probe expanding to include questions about Jared Kushner's business dealings during the presidential transition. Also, CNN gets a look inside the building where Russian spies and computer experts meddled in the 2016 election.
She's nationally recognized for her compassion and care. He spent decades fighting to give families a second chance. But to help others, they first had to protect themselves.
I have AFib. Even for a nurse, it's complicated, and it puts me at a higher risk of stroke.
That would be devastating. I had to learn all I could to help protect myself.
Once I got the facts, my doctor and I chose Xarelto.
Xarelto, to help keep me protected.
Once daily Xarelto, a latest generation blood thinner, significantly lowers the risk of stroke in people with AFib not caused by a heart valve problem. It has similar effectiveness to warfarin.
Xarelto works differently.
Warfarin interferes with at least 6 blood clotting factors. Xarelto is selective, targeting just one critical factor, interacting with less of your body's natural blood clotting function. For AFib patients well managed on warfarin, there is limited information on how Xarelto compares in reducing the risk of stroke. Don't stop taking Xarelto without talking to your doctor, as this may increase risk of stroke. While taking, you may bruise more easily or take longer for bleeding to stop. It may increase your risk of bleeding if you take certain medicines. Xarelto can cause serious and in rare cases fatal bleeding. Get help right away for unexpected bleeding, unusual bruising, or tingling. If you've had spinal anesthesia, watch for back pain or any nerve or muscle-related signs or symptoms. Do not take Xarelto if you have an artificial heart valve or abnormal bleeding. Tell your doctor before all planned medical or dental procedures and before starting Xarelto about any conditions such as kidney, liver, or bleeding problems.
It's important to learn all you can
to help protect yourself from a stroke.
Talk to your doctor about Xarelto. There's more to know.
Liberty Mutual saved us almost $800 when we switched our auto and home insurance.
With Liberty, we could afford a real babysitter instead of your brother. Oh, that's my robe.
Is it? When you switch to Liberty Mutual, you could save $782 on auto and home insurance and still get great coverage for you and your family. Call 1-888-875-3144 for a free quote today. You could save $782 when Liberty stands with you. Liberty Mutual Insurance.
If you're only hungry for a slice of apple pie, why buy the whole pie? And you certainly wouldn't want to pay for an all-you-can-eat buffet. So if you don't use your cell phone that much, why get charged for a plan that's too big, or even an unlimited plan? Luckily, there's still a wireless company that shares your values. Welcome to Consumer Cellular. Our average customer pays about $25 a month for everything they need. Many pay even less, as plans start at just $15 a month. You'll get a straightforward bill that's easy to understand with no surprises and all the attention you deserve from our friendly customer service team. No wonder Consumer Cellular has received the J.D. Power Award for highest customer service 4 times in a row. Plus, if you're an AARP member, you'll receive special discounts. It's easy to switch. You can even keep your phone and your number. So stop paying for more than you need and switch now. For a limited time, get your first month of service free. Call 1-800-409-7343. Go online or visit a Target store today.
Tinnitus affects millions of people, and in a recent study, sufferers tried lipoflavonoid for 60 days as directed. Those who completed the study reported a 32% improvement in their symptoms. Try Lipoflavonoid 60-Day Challenge. If it doesn't work for you, you'll get your money back.
The deadliest school shooting since Sandy Hook. The students of Stoneman Douglas speak out to demand action and an end to the violence once and for all. Stand Up, a live CNN town hall hosted by Jake Tapper. Wednesday evening, 9 Eastern.
I cannot imagine managing my diabetes without my Dexcom.
This is the Dexcom G5 Mobile Continuous Glucose Monitoring System. A small wearable sensor measures your glucose every 5 minutes and sends the data to a Dexcom receiver.
Dexcom helps lower A1C and improves quality of life. If you're over 65 and you have diabetes, you should have a Dexcom.
If you get a Dexcom, you're going to be very glad that you did.
Visit Dexcomnow.com to learn more.
My prescriptions used to be really expensive, but then I went to GoodRx.com.
It just works. You put in the drug you're looking for, and bang, you've got half a dozen or more choices in front of you of pricing and locations to get it.
You never think about shopping around for medication prices.
I have good insurance, but with GoodRx, I save even more money.
What? I was paying how much?
And it's absolutely free. No cost to me whatsoever.
I get to save $1,180 a year with GoodRx. This is awesome.
Go to GoodRx.com and check it out.
American Dynasties, The Kennedys, premieres Sunday, March 11th at 9 on CNN.
The Kremlin is finally reacting to the special counsel's indictment of 13 Russians and 3 Russian entities, saying there's no substantial evidence of meddling in the U.S. election. But more details have been emerging about Russian efforts to sow discord online. Let's go live to St. Petersburg, Russia, where our senior international correspondent Matthew Chance is just outside one of those troll farms named in the indictment. Matthew, what are you learning?
Well, first of all, Wolf, we're learning that this troll farm behind me here, the Internet Research Agency, as it's called, is actually still functioning. We were expecting to see it all closed up. There's been so much publicity surrounding it. But all throughout the day here in St. Petersburg, people have been coming and going to the offices. Workers have been coming out, taking cigarette breaks. And it's clearly still a functioning place. Just a reminder, this is the place that was named in that US indictment as being the office where all that illegal activity took place. Russians posing as Americans, inserting themselves in blogs and internet chat rooms, hiring advertising space to promote one candidate or the other, even organising divisive political rallies on the streets of American cities. That whole conspiracy, alleged conspiracy to, sow discord in America, it took place in that office block behind me. This is the only glimpse we have of a Russian troll factory in action. The undercover video was recorded inside the secretive Internet Research Agency in St. Petersburg, where paid internet provocateurs worked 12-hour shifts, distorting the US political debate. CNN spoke to a Russian journalist who went undercover there as an internet troll in 2016.
The US elections are the key issue for the Kremlin, and of course Russia has invested a lot of effort into them. That's why the troll factories are working, I have no doubt.
And this is the publicity-shy Russian oligarch now indicted in the US for bankrolling the troll factory. Yevgeny Prigozhin, dubbed by Russian media as Putin's chef, has lucrative catering contracts with the Kremlin, but denies any involvement in election meddling. Americans are very impressionable people, he told Russian state media. They see what they want to see. I have great respect for them. I'm not at all upset that I'm on this list. If they want to see the devil, let them see one, he added. But the possible extent of Prigozhin's alleged involvement in the often shadowy world of Russian foreign policy is only now starting to emerge. He's already under US sanctions for supporting Russian forces in Ukraine. And now, through a complex web of relationships, he's suspected of links to covert Russian mercenaries deployed in Syria, where CNN has reported several were killed in a recent US airstrike. Prigozhin denies any connection to the group. Whatever the truth, Putin's chef and his network of secretive companies seem to extend far beyond the kitchen. Well, Wolf, we heard there Prigozhin's denial of any involvement in meddling in the US election. There have been other official denials as well. One from the Russian Foreign Minister, Sergei Lavrov, saying that, all of the details he'd heard were what he said was blather. Also, the Kremlin has today reacted for the first time to the latest US indictment, saying it doesn't see any substantial evidence, at least, that any official Russian, any state operator was involved in the meddling in the US political system. Wolf, back to you.
All right, Matthew, thank you. Matthew Chance in St. Petersburg, Russia. Good report. Coming up, there's more breaking news in a CNN exclusive. We're learning that special counsel Robert Mueller is looking into efforts by presidential son-in-law and advisor Jared Kushner to get foreign financing for his company during the presidential transition.
Looks great, honey.
Right? Sometimes you need an expert.
I got it.
And sometimes those experts need experts.
On it.
And sometimes the expert needed needs insurance expertise.
It's all good. Steve, you're covered for general liability. And Paul, we got your back with workers' comp. Wow, it's like a party in here. Where are the hors d'oeuvres, right? Tartlets? We cover commercial vehicles, too. I think there's something wrong with your safe.
Homeowners. Is high-interest credit card debt getting in your way? Maybe you need to buy something important for your home but can't because too much of your budget is going toward your credit card debt. At interest rates like 14, 19, even 24%, that can really add up. Here's a solution. Call Mr. Cooper and let us help you use your home equity to consolidate debt. With home values rising, your home could be worth more than you think. That extra equity could be turned into cash to pay off those credit cards and other high-interest debt. Just by deciding to consolidate their debt, our customers have lowered their monthly payments an average of $538 a month. That's money they're using to improve their homes, support their families, and get on with their lives. Want to lower your monthly payments and keep more of your hard-earned money for your family? Go to MrCooper.com or call 1-888-844-9799.
At Joseph A. Bank, we create classic menswear tailored for the modern man. Because looking good is a tradition that never goes out of style.
What can a president do in 30 seconds? He can fire an FBI director who won't pledge his loyalty. He can order the deportation of 1 million immigrant children. He can threaten an unstable dictator armed with nuclear weapons. He can go into a rage and enter the nuclear launch codes. How bad does it have to get before Congress does something?
I lost 50 pounds on Jenny Craig, and you can too.
Introducing Rapid Results by Jenny Craig. Lose up to 16 pounds in just 4 weeks. Pasta, pizza, burgers. You get to eat really good food 6 times a day, and you don't even have to cook. The program includes a personal weight loss expert who understands men. None of that group meeting stuff.
This is the best program for a busy guy.
Now lose 16 pounds for $16 plus the cost of food, and get $100 in free food. Hurry, this offer won't last long.
Your brain changes as you get older, but Prevagen helps your brain with an ingredient originally discovered in jellyfish. In clinical trials, Prevagen has been shown to improve short-term memory. Prevagen, the name to remember.
You're a rich girl, and you're going too far, 'cause you know it don't matter anyway.
I'm a soldier in the People's Army.
The Radical Story of Patty Hearst. New episode, Sundays at 9 on CNN.
Did you know that every time you use the internet, you put yourself at risk? Not only can your internet service provider see every website you visit, hackers can see your transaction details, strangers can monitor your children's activity, and your information can be exploited without your knowledge. That's why you need NordVPN. NordVPN uses military-grade security protocols that protect your information so no one can see what you do online. In just a few clicks, you can protect up to 6 devices for just $4 per month. Don't risk being hacked. Install NordVPN and protect yourself from annoying ads, cyber criminals, and strangers, all while you enjoy secure streaming, ad blocking, and malware blocking benefits. For ultimate online privacy, there's only one solution: NordVPN. To get military-grade security for the whole family on up to 6 devices from just $4 per month, visit NordVPN.com/TV today.
This is CNN, the most trusted name in news.
Happening now, breaking news. Kushner under scrutiny. CNN has learned that the special counsel is expanding his investigation to look at the foreign business dealings of the president's son-in-law and senior advisor, going beyond Jared Kushner's Russia contacts. Stand by for our exclusive report. All tweet, no action. President Trump is on the attack once again tonight, blasting President Obama's response to the Russia election, meddling while refusing to blame Vladimir Putin. We're tracking Mr. Trump's ongoing rant about new Russia indictments. Kremlin denials. Russia is helping the president feed his false narrative, dismissing the Mueller investigation as much ado about nothing. CNN is live in Moscow with new reaction from the Putin government and warnings and anger. The Florida school shooter appears in court as we're learning more about his arsenal of deadly weapons and warning signs that were missed. The family who took him in is now telling CNN what they knew. We want to welcome our viewers in the United States and around the world. I'm Wolf Blitzer. You're in the Situation Room.
This is CNN Breaking News.
We're following breaking news on the Russia investigation and the special counsel's growing interest in one of the most prominent members of the Trump administration, the president's son-in-law and senior advisor, Jared Kushner. Robert Mueller casting an ever-widening net just days after his bombshell indictment of 13 Russians for election meddling. I'll get reaction from Democratic Congressman John Garamendi, a member of the Armed Services Committee. And our correspondents and analysts, they're also standing by. First, let's go to members of the team behind CNN's exclusive new reporting on the Russia probe. Shimon Prokopez and Kara Scannell are joining us. Shimon, first to you, what's at the center of what Mueller is now investigating?
Well, Wolf, CNN has learned that the special counsel, Robert Mueller, is now asking questions about Jared Kushner's personal business dealings during the presidential transition. We're told by people who are familiar with the investigation that Mueller's lawyers are asking about discussions Kushner had with potential Chinese and Qatari investors. Now, this is the first indication that Mueller wants to know about contacts the president's son-in-law had with foreigners outside of Russia. The discussion revolved around this building in Manhattan at 666 Fifth Avenue, which Kushner's company owns. The financing on the building is in debt by over $1 billion. Now, it's not clear what is behind Mueller's specific interest in the financing, and we're told that the special counsel hasn't asked the Kushner companies for information. He also has not asked for interviews with other executives from the companies. A spokesman for the special counsel has declined to comment, and moments ago, within the last hour, Abby Lowell, who is Jared Kushner's attorney, provided this statement to CNN. And let me go ahead and read that to you. And that says, another anonymous source with questionable motives now contradicts the facts in all of Mr. Kushner's extensive cooperation with all inquiries. There has not been a single question asked nor document sought on the 666 building or Kushner company deals, nor will there be any reason to question these regular business transactions. And again, this is his attorney, Abby Lowell, who just gave us the statement about an hour ago after we first published this story.
You know, Kara, what are the details of the meetings that we're learning?
So there are two meetings and discussions that were had with foreign investors that we understand Special Counsel Robert Mueller's team is exploring. One of those has to do with meeting that Kushner had with Anbang Insurance. It's a Chinese conglomerate, and the New York Times reported that they met with Kushner and others 1 week after the election, and they discussed financing for 666 Fifth Avenue. Those conversations continued into the president's first term, and we understand that no financing took place. Another investor that Special Counsel Mueller has asked questions about is a very prominent Qatari businessman. Those conversations began well before during the campaign and continued on through the administration. Again, no deal was ever reached in either of those. Kushner previously had declined to comment, but Shimon has the updated statement, and we have been unable to reach the Qatari for comment. Anbang also declined to comment.
They both declined to comment on this. So, Shimon, what would Robert Mueller, the special counsel, be seeking to try to figure out in asking these kinds of questions about Kushner and his business dealings?
So certainly the question of whether he was mixing his personal business with his work as an incoming administration official, certainly that would be something perhaps Mueller would want to ask questions about. We know that there have been several meetings that the special counsel has asked about, specifically as it relates to Kushner's conversations, Kushner's dealings with some of these foreign nationals. And now it seems, at least from multiple sources, you know, Abby Lowell could say the story is based on one anonymous source, but we have several sources that we talked to who basically said, yeah, these questions have come up in our meetings with the special counsel. You know, Kara, the President Trump, he has said that getting into his personal business dealings or his family's personal business dealings, that the finances of all of that would cross what he calls a red line. Is there an argument that can be made
that that this doesn't necessarily fall under the purview of what Robert Mueller's mandate is?
I'm sure we'll hear that argument from those close to the White House because they're going to look at the authority that Mueller's team has. But it's also important to remember that Mueller's team was also given this as part of their mandate. It says that any matters that arose or may arise directly from the investigation. Now, we don't know how Mueller's team is using this information. They could be asking questions about this to check the box and say there's nothing to see here. They may be looking at it from a different angle that has nothing to do so much with the personal finances, but why they were having these conversations. And so I think it's too early to know why these questions, where they're going to go, and if a red line is being crossed here.
Could Kushner, Shimon, be actually facing charges?
Well, there's no indication here from the sources that we've talked to that he's facing any charges or he's in any kind of legal jeopardy at this point. People have expressly said to us that this is sort of, they get the sense that Mueller is certainly exploring this avenue, but there's no indication that Kushner is a target or that he's going to face any charges.
Shimon, Kara, good reporting. Thank you very much. Exclusive CNN reporting. Also right now, President Trump is heading back to Washington from Florida. He's still stewing over new indictments in the Russia investigation. He's picking up where he left off in a blame and anger-filled rant on Twitter. Tonight, he's targeting President Obama while continuing to leave the Russian President, Vladimir Putin, off the hook. Let's go live to our senior White House correspondent, Pamela Brown. Pamela, it's been a long holiday weekend. The president, he's been riled up about the Russia probe. Update our viewers on the latest.
That's right, Wolf. The president got worked up over the weekend at his resort in Mar-a-Lago after talking to his sons and watching news coverage of the Russian indictment spurring on his Twitter tirade, according to sources familiar with the matter. And after a round of golf today, the president went back to Twitter, this time taking aim at his predecessor, but notably not Russia.
President Trump began his President's Day at his Florida golf course after deciding to avoid the links Saturday and Sunday in the aftermath of last week's mass shooting. After golfing, he took to Twitter, blaming his predecessor, tweeting, "Obama was president up to and beyond the 2016 election. So why didn't he do something about Russian meddling?" The president has spent much of the weekend raging on Twitter at his Mar-a-Lago resort, watching cable news and getting riled up by his sons Don Jr. and Eric, who urged their father to take a tougher stance with the FBI after it was revealed the agency failed to follow up on a tip about the Florida shooter. Very sad that the FBI missed all of the many signals sent out by the Florida school shooter. "This is not acceptable," the president tweeted. "They are spending too much time trying to prove Russian collusion with the Trump campaign. There was no collusion." In the wake of special counsel Robert Mueller's indictment of 13 Russians for meddling in the 2016 election, the president appears to be lashing out at everyone but Russia. First, he fired off a tweet suggesting he'd been vindicated in the Russia probe, pointing to comments made by the Deputy Attorney General. But Rod Rosenstein never definitively said there was no collusion, merely that this specific indictment does not include collusion.
There's no allegation in this indictment that any American had any knowledge. And the nature of the scheme was that the defendants took extraordinary steps to make it appear that they were ordinary American political activists.
The top Democrat overseeing the House intelligence investigation, Adam Schiff, seizing on the indictments of the 13 Russian nationals as clear-cut evidence of Russian meddling.
It ought to put to rest for anyone, including the president, who continues to call this a witch hunt, that the evidence is now overwhelming and unequivocal. And we need to move to protect ourselves from Russian interference in elections that are coming up.
The president choosing instead to focus on comments Schiff made about the Obama administration. Trump tweeting, "Finally, little Adam Schiff is now blaming the Obama administration for Russian meddling in the 2016 election. Obama was president, knew of the threat, and did nothing."
I've said all along that I thought the Obama administration should have done more. None of that is an excuse for this president to sit on his hands. Knowing what he knows now, knowing what our intelligence community knows now in this excruciating detail about the Russian effort, it is inexplicable that the President of the United States continues to sit on sanctions that Congress passed, that Congress wants to enforce against Russia over this interference.
For its part, the White House is avoiding specifics.
Can we expect the president to have additional action against this country who clearly doesn't fear or respect us?
Well, I won't get ahead of what the president is prepared to announce, but I wouldn't for one second say that his foreign policy has not been effective.
Trump also claiming he never said Russia did not meddle, contradicting himself from the past.
Could have been a lot of people interfered.
I
said it very simply. I think it could very well have been Russia, but I think it could well have been other countries.
But the president claims the multiple Russia investigations are satisfying Putin's plan, tweeting, "If it was the goal of Russia to create discord, disruption, and chaos within the U.S., then with all of the committee hearings, investigations, and party hatred, they have succeeded beyond their wildest dreams. They are laughing their asses off in Moscow. Get smart, America." This as his deputy White House press secretary Hogan Gidley deflected blame on Russia by accusing Democrats and the media of dividing the nation.
There are two groups that have created chaos more than the Russians, and that's the Democrats and the mainstream media, who continued to push this lie on the American people for more than a year. And quite frankly, Americans should be outraged by that.
And the president is expected to arrive back here at the White House very soon. This after a day of demonstrations outside of the White House pushing for gun reform. Sources say that the president spent part of the weekend at Mar-a-Lago talking about the gun issue, getting input from friends and family there. The White House has said that the president does support efforts to improve the federal background check system. But now Wolf will have to wait and see what concrete steps the White House takes next to address the issue.
Pamela Brown at the White House for us. Thank you. Also tonight, as President Trump lashes out at his predecessor, there's some new reaction from Russia that's dismissive of the special counsel's investigation. Let's go to our senior international correspondent, Frederick Pleitgen, who's joining us live from Moscow right now. Fred, so what are you hearing from the Kremlin?
Yeah, you know, it's really interesting, Wolf, because we were on a phone call today with the Kremlin, and for months the Russians have been saying the U.S. investigators have put forward no evidence that there was Russian meddling in the U.S. election. Well, today we asked them, look, the special counsel has now put forward this evidence in the form of these indictments. And the answer from the Kremlin was in the form of the spokesman for Vladimir Putin to say that Russian citizens had been implicated, but not the Russian state. And, you know, one of the things that U.S. investigators have been talking about so much over the past couple of months is the way that the Russians try to maintain what they call plausible deniability, using companies like the one in question for these kinds of operations to make sure that there is some sort of space between them and the Kremlin. So far, the Russians have not given an explanation as to why a Russian oligarch who is close to Vladimir Putin would sink millions of dollars into a trolling campaign against U.S. democracy and against the Clinton campaign for any other reason, or whether or not he had anything to do with the Kremlin. And as far as Pamela's report was concerned, and the president tweeting his anger towards the Democrats, towards the media, but not towards the Russians, well, the Russians are actually returning that favor. There is a pattern here in Moscow of them criticizing the U.S., but not criticizing President Trump. And Wolf, I actually went past some of the things that the top three people here in Russia have said over the past couple of months. You have Vladimir Putin in December saying all these charges had been dreamed up by Trump's opponents in an effort to discredit him. Then in January, you had Sergei Lavrov, the foreign minister, come out and saying that Trump was forced into making anti-American decisions by some of his political enemies. And then just a couple of days ago, you had the prime minister, Dmitry Medvedev, come out and saying the U.S. elite is using all this to settle political scores with President Trump. So as you can see, a lot of this goes both ways, where on the one hand you have President Trump not criticizing the Russians, you also have the Russians not really criticizing President Trump, while of course lashing out at the U.S. over this investigation and everything that has been such issues for U.S.-Russian relations, Wolf.
Yeah, good point. All right, Fred, thank you. Fred Pleitgen reporting live from Moscow. Let's talk more about all the breaking news. Joining us, Congressman John Garamendi. He's a Democrat of the Armed Services Committee. Congressman, thanks for joining us.
Good to be with you, Wolf.
All right, so you heard our new reporting. This was all happening as Jared Kushner was helping with the presidential transition, the president's son-in-law and senior advisor. What risks could that pose?
It's a simple conflict of interest. He is in a very, very important, powerful position, probably the closest person next to the president, receiving all kinds of classified information, and at the same time dealing on his own for his own business, not only during the transition, but apparently, according to your report, after the president was in place. That's a conflict of interest, plain and simple. Does it lead to something? We don't know. But clearly, it's a conflict of interest, using your position to deal for yourself. And I must say the president seems to be doing the same by hanging out and inviting foreign dignitaries to his various golf courses. But beyond that, listening to what is going on from the Kremlin, I think I've heard that before. When the Russian government took over Crimea, they denied that they had anything to do with it. Hello? We knew they had something to do with it. And those little green men in Ukraine, guess what? They denied involvement there. Denial, 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 but the facts are clear. The facts are clear that the Russian operation, most certainly under the authority of the Kremlin, involved in our elections, sending spies into America, subversion and subverting American citizens. This is beyond the pale. It requires a very, very hit back from the U.S. government, and I'm afraid we're not going to get it.
Jared Kushner's lawyer says a new security clearance policy won't influence Kushner's ability to work in the White House with sensitive material, key national security related issues. In light of this new reporting, though, should Jared Kushner, Congressman, have access to classified information, including the presidential daily brief?
Absolutely, he should not be given that information. And let's go back to conflict of interest. He's double dealing. He is sitting there in the White House, putting forth policies, and at the very same time, he is involved in his own personal business. I think his wife had something to do with China during that period of time when he was reaching out to China for money. What was it? Had something to do with trademarks, like a lot of trademarks, in their own business interest. It seems to be at least the bottom. And if one were to look at what Russia did, not supposedly did, but did in this election, hacked the DNC, hacked John Podesta, then used that information in the campaign, and then this indictment even goes in an additional direction. And what is this administration doing? Well, they're cozying up to Putin at the very same time that they ought to be hitting back in every way.
You know, Congressman, should Jared Kushner recuse himself from any decisions related to national security, any policy with both China and Qatar?
I think it goes beyond that. It goes beyond that. This White House, the Trump family writ large, is involved in multiple deals all around the world, in countries all around the world where their business is dependent upon the goodwill of that country. It is a conflict. It is a conflict that in some ways is directly opposite the Emoluments Clause of the Constitution, which in its very plain language says that the president and officials cannot take gifts from foreign governments. Those trademarks are an enormously important, valuable commodity to the Trump family. It is a conflict of the emoluments, the Constitution itself. And I think, we know, we saw him. We saw the president pledge that he would defend the Constitution. Well, my sense of it is that this family's business interests are in direct conflict with the Constitution. And there should be no continuation of the conflicts that exist. We cannot do too much immediately about Trump's conflicts, although every previous president put all of their financial interest in a blind trust or disposed of their assets. This president did exactly the opposite. He maintained his personal financial involvement through a trust in which he receives all of the benefits. Now, what's going on with Russia? There are two tracks here, Wolf, two very, very serious tracks. One track has to do with the Russian investigation, all that we're talking about with Kushner and family and so forth. That's important. But the other track is equally important, and that is we must defend our democracy. And that is not happening.
Congressman John Garamendi, thanks as usual for joining us.
Happy to be with you.
Just ahead, what prompted the special counsel, Robert Mueller, to dig deeper into Jared Kushner's business dealings? Talk more about our exclusive breaking story with a former FBI special agent. And armed to kill. New information about the Florida school shooter's cache of weapons.
This is food made to sit down for. Slow down for. Put the phone away and use a knife and fork for. And with Panera Catering, it's food worth sharing. Panera, food as it should be.
At Safelite Auto Glass, we know that when you're spending time with the grandkids, every minute counts. And you don't have time for a cracked windshield. That's why at Safelite, we'll show you exactly when we'll be there with a replacement you can trust. Hold on, sir. Looks great. Thanks for choosing Safelite. Thank you. Bye. Bye. Saving you time so you can keep saving the world.
Safelite Repair, Safelite Replace.
Thanks, man. Imagine if the things you bought every day earned you miles to get to the places you really want to go. With the United Mileage Plus Explorer card, you'll get a free checked bag, 2 United Club passes, priority boarding, and earn 50,000 bonus miles after you spend $3,000 on purchases in the first 3 months from account opening. Plus, $0 intro annual fee for the first year, then $95. Learn more at theexplorercard.com. Year, then $95. Learn more at theexplorercard.com.
Introducing the new Infiniti QX80. Infiniti, empower the drive.
I'm your phone. Stuck down here between your seat and your console, playing a little hide and seek. Cold. Warmer. Warmer. Boiling. Jackpot. And if you've got cut rate car insurance, you could be picking up these charges yourself. So get Allstate, where agents help keep you protected from mayhem. Like me.
Mayhem is everywhere.
You can send money online, in store, or on the app. From here to there. So you can help him pay for college. Send money the way you like, right now.
The moment a fish is pulled up from the water, it's a race against time. And keeping it in the right conditions is the best way to get that fish to your plate safely.
Sometimes a product arrives and the cold chain has been interrupted, and we need to be able to identify where in the cold chain that occurred.
We took our world-class network and we developed devices to track environmental conditions. This device allows people to understand what's happening with the location, but also if it's too hot, if it's too cold, if it's been dropped. It's completely unique.
If you have a sensor that can keep track of your product, it keeps everybody kind of honest that way.
Who knew a tiny sensor could help keep the food chain safe?
Excuse me, are you aware of what's happening right now? We're facing 20 billion security events every day. DDoS campaigns, ransomware, malware attacks.
Actually, we just handled all the priority threats.
You did that?
We did that.
Really?
We analyzed millions of articles and reports.
We can identify threats 50% faster.
You can do that?
We can do that.
Then do that.
Can we do that? We can do that.
Closed captioning brought to you by OnlyMeso.com.
We offer a free book on mental health. Call 1-800-831-3700.
Looking at pictures just moments ago, the president and the First Lady, their son Barron, they arrived at Joint Base Andrews right outside of Washington, D.C. From Florida, the president is now getting in a motorcade, heading back to the White House. Weather here a little rusty right now. That's why they're not taking Marine One from Joint Base Andrews over to the south lawn of the White House. The president back from his long holiday weekend in Florida. Learned that the special counsel, Robert Mueller, is now asking questions about Jared Kushner's personal business dealings during the presidential transition, going beyond his Russia contacts. Let's talk more about our exclusive reporting. Joining us, CNN law enforcement analyst Josh Campbell, a former FBI supervisory special agent. Josh, what red flags might have led the special counsel to open this line of inquiry?
I think it's yet to be seen, Wolf. We've seen some great reporting from our CNN colleagues, Shimon Prokupecz and Kerry Scannell. It'll be interesting to see how this new line of inquiry with Kushner plays into the larger investigation. If you recall from the order from May 17th of 2017, where the Deputy Attorney General appointed the special counsel, he gave him the charge of investigating any potential collusion, any links or coordination between the Russian government and the Trump campaign. But there also was that second prong, and that is any additional information that is derived from the investigation. A very broad mandate. I can tell you in law enforcement, when you're conducting an investigation, even if you're charged with looking at one crime, if during the course of that investigation you uncover additional information or additional crime, you don't simply ignore it.
Yeah, that helps explain why Paul Manafort right now is in deep trouble, the former Trump campaign chairman. The president hasn't condemned Russia since we learned about the details of its interference in the 2016 presidential election, but he did link the Parkland, Florida school shooting to the special counsel's investigation, tweeting this. Let me read it to you. Very sad that the FBI missed all of the many signals sent out by the Florida school shooter. This is not acceptable. They are spending too much time trying to prove Russian collusion with the Trump campaign. There is no collusion. Get back to the basics and make us proud. What's your response to that, Josh?
Well, I think it's an unfortunate political distraction, and the FBI is no stranger to unfair political attacks lately. We've seen a lot of that. But what I think it does is that it takes our focus, sadly, away from what we should be doing, and that's making the FBI better. Let me say at the outset that the FBI's primary mission is the protection of human life. It is, always has been, it always will be. But it can walk and chew gum. It can simultaneously defend the United States against the attacks of foreign intelligence services who are attempting to, do harm here in America. They can do both. But what I'm afraid that it does when you take these two issues and you combine them is that it takes our focus away from looking at the FBI, looking at what happened in this instance, and making it better, ensuring that it does not happen again.
The Florida governor, Rick Scott, is calling for the FBI director, Christopher Wray, to resign over the FBI's failure to properly follow up on a January warning about the Parkland shooter. Is that appropriate?
So at this point, you know, I've said that I think that it would be a distraction and I think it would be premature. The focus has to be on determining what happened. But it goes broader than that, not only within the FBI, but how does the FBI and law enforcement throughout the country, mental health institutions and educational institutions, how do all of those agencies fuse together to share information that may stop potential threats? And then the last issue, which is obviously the big one, is how do we get these weapons of war off our streets and out of our schools? We should be focusing on that. I don't think that any one resignation at this point would be helpful. I think it actually may hinder those efforts. That's something to be determined down the road. But I think we need to come together, look at the mistake that was made, which is a big one. It's a colossal mistake here on the FBI. But we have to look at it collectively and help make the agency and our nation safer.
Josh Campbell, thanks very much for that analysis. Just ahead, more on our CNN exclusive reporting as the special counsel's investigation looks into Jared Kushner's efforts to get foreign financing for his company during the presidential transition. Plus, the Florida high school shooter appears in court today as we learn more about the warning signs that were missed. And the family that sheltered him now speaking out in both shock and horror.
Looks great, honey.
Right? Sometimes you need an expert.
I got it.
And sometimes those experts need experts.
On it.
And sometimes the expert needed needs insurance expertise.
It's all good. Steve, you're covered for general liability. And Paul, we got your back with workers' comp. Wow, it's like a party in here. Where are the hors d'oeuvres, right? Tartlets? We cover commercial vehicles, too. I think there's something wrong with your sink.
What's with him?
He's happy. Your family's finally eating vegetables, thanks to our Bird's Eye Voila skillet meals.
And they only take 15 minutes to make.
Ow!
Oh. Oh, my.
Bird's Eye Voila. So veggie good.
Oh. I don't have my wallet, so.
Perfect. You can send a digital payment.
I don't have one of those payment apps.
Perfect. You have a US-based bank account, right?
I have Wells Fargo.
Perfect. Then you should have Zelle.
Perfect.
Perfect.
The #1 mobile banking app just got better.
Does your coach use Zelle too?
Of course.
Another way we're building better every day.
Disability. A condition that damages or limits a person's physical or mental abilities.
Nope, not me. Not for me.
No way. Nuh-uh.
Not me.
No way.
Not me. At Shriners Hospitals for Children, we know the only real limits are the ones we put on ourselves.
Every day, for over 90 years, Shriners Hospitals for Children has been sending love to the rescue, regardless of a family's ability to pay.
But we can't do it without you. When you go to loveshriners.org right now and give just 63 cents a day, you're helping kids like me have no limit.
No limits.
No limits. No limits to my ability.
Because of you, now there are no limits to what Georgia can do.
When you call today, we will send you this adorable Love to the Rescue blanket as a thank you and a reminder of how you are helping a kid like me.
Because of you, we see lives changed every day.
It only takes 63 cents a day to inspire a kid like me. And me. And me. And me. And me.
Your gift, no matter how small, can help a child today.
Because of people like you, I can run.
I can play basketball. I can ski.
Help inspire a child right now by giving at loveshriners.org.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for giving.
Will you join us in helping children in need? Please, call or go online now. If operators are busy, please call again or give right away at loveshriners.org. Your call says you care.
The deadliest school shooting since Sandy Hook. The students of Stoneman Douglas speak out to demand action and an end to the violence once and for all. Stand Up, a live CNN town hall hosted by Jake Tapper. Wednesday evening, 9 Eastern.
I'm not cut out for an office job, so I prefer working in public cafes and in co-working places. Sharing same Wi-Fi spots can lead to some really serious invasions. VPN gives me peace of mind when I use unsecured public networks.
Did you know that your internet service provider can see what websites you visit? And they can track your exact location? That's insane. Who'd like that kind of surveillance?
The concern that we have is that they can actually spy on our activities online and then sell that information to the highest bidder.
Including the information of our kids who basically live on the internet. I mean, they can track the exact location of where my kid is.
Yes, which is why we use VPN to protect all our family devices from such invasive surveillance.
Protect yourself. Get NordVPN for only $4 a month. Visit nordvpn.com/TV now.
This is CNN, the most trusted name in news.
We're following multiple breaking stories right now. President Trump returning to Washington from Florida and resuming his Twitter rant about the Russia investigation. This, the CNN is reporting exclusively on the special counsel's growing interest in the president's son-in-law and senior advisor, Jared Kushner. Robert Mueller's team now looking into Kushner's personal business dealings, including discussions he had with potential Chinese and Qatari investors. Let's bring in our analysts and specialists. And Jeffrey Toobin, what is the latest reporting on Jared Kushner's foreign business dealings, specifically during the presidential transition, tell you about the scope of Mueller's investigation right now?
Well, certainly it shows that it's broad, as does the indictment that surprised all of us last week. But the Kushner story just underlines why senior government officials are not supposed to be conducting their personal business at the same time they're exercising governmental power. You know, Jared Kushner is involved in an extremely troubled investment here in New York at 666 Fifth Avenue. He needs money. He needs investors. He's been seeking money and investors. That is a conflict with exercising governmental power over the people and the countries that might do the investing. Whether he committed any crime, I certainly don't know. There's no evidence that he did at this point, but it is certainly a good reason not to have these sorts of conflicts of interest.
And the fact that he's still 13 months into this administration, Phil, does not have full security clearances, even though he continues to have access to some of the most sensitive information out there. What does that say to you?
This is pretty straightforward. When you look at a security clearance process, you're looking for vulnerabilities. The person walking into a polygraph, for example, is not going to necessarily say, I'm uncomfortable, I have problems at home. You're looking at vulnerabilities like, for example, spousal abuse, child abuse. We saw that all the time in the security process at CIA. It weeded people out, a lot of shoplifters. But one of the most significant vulnerabilities that was looked at over the years, especially after major spy cases, was financial vulnerability. And the U.S. government involved in terms of what kind of documentation they asked people like me about their financial backgrounds. I look at this and I think not only of the Mueller investigation, but of whether this suggests why Jared Kushner, as you're saying, doesn't have a security clearance. Maybe he doesn't want to turn over the documentation that would allow the government to process the security clearance because he's worried about it.
You know, Laura Jarrett, the Los Angeles Times is, now reporting that Rick Gates, who was a senior advisor to the campaign, may soon be cooperating with the special counsel, Robert Mueller. How worrying should that be for Paul Manafort, the former campaign chairman, and for others in the Trump campaign?
Yeah, if Gates gets this plea deal, I think that can only mean a lot more trouble for Paul Manafort. You remember in that indictment back in October, the two are inextricably linked with their business dealings, all of their work in the Ukraine. The special counsel lays it out in, over 30 pages. And so Gates knows a fair amount about Manafort and his business dealings, but he also has a lot to lose. We know that he has a young family, and these are serious charges. He's facing decades in prison if convicted, and so he may feel more pressure to go through with this, given his limited financial means. He can't be paying over $1 million in legal fees, Wolf.
The president spent the weekend at Mar-a-Lago, his resort down in Palm Beach, and he was, we're told, watching a lot of TV, cable TV, about all the Russia investigation, the latest breaking developments, including the Russian trolls and all that. What's the impression you get, David, from his long weekend tweet storm? There were, what, 15, 18 tweets that were really going at various issues.
Look, Wolf, we've all gotten used to these weekend tweet storms, so the president is frequently combative,
frequently misleading, but this was like the, you know, the chef kisses fingers of President Trump tweet storms. It was hostile. He made the Florida tragedy about himself, and he kept going and going, blaming others for his problems. It suggests to me, Wolf, that he's really worried about the special counsel investigation, because what we saw on Friday was special counsel Mueller laying out indictments that even if they don't ever bring criminal charges or ever get extraditions of these Russians, he's leaving breadcrumbs so that with each passing thing, Rick Gates, the Russians, it's harder and harder for this investigation to get shut down.
What does this suggest, Jeffrey, to you?
Well, that the president doesn't operate by the rules of American politics. I mean, the idea that he is just, you know, continuing to attack law enforcement and attack the FBI when they are trying to solve the problems, some of which he created with his campaign, it's just astonishing. And you know, and attacking Oprah Winfrey. I mean, it is something that presidents have never done before, and perhaps they'll never do again.
Let me get Phil to weigh in. Go ahead, Phil.
He's sinking into irrelevance. That's what tells me. I'm going to give you proof for that in just a moment. That is, he says things that don't correspond to reality. For example, his characterization of the indictment. And people step back and say, after 13 months of this, we don't pay attention. The fact that I want to mention is we've lost track of this, but this week the Pentagon will issue a report on how it's going to take steps forward on the president's tweets about transgenders in the military. I'm going to lay my personal money on the table, Wolf. I'll lay $1,000 on the table, my money to the charity of your choice, if what the Pentagon says this week in terms of instituting policy on transgenders looks anything like what the president tweeted. Let's lay it on the table. I think what the president tweeted was irrelevant, and what the Pentagon will say is fundamentally different this week. That'll happen within 2 or 3 days.
If I can just voice a little disagreement, I don't think the president is irrelevant at all. Every single member of the Republican Party in the House and the Senate, except those who are not running for re-election, are supporting him 100%. The Republican Party is Donald Trump's party, and we can be outraged on cable news, but the people who cast the votes are still very much with the president.
You want to add something before I go to break, Phil?
Absolutely, I do. We're going to tear up the Iran nuclear deal. No, we're not. Discussions with North Korea are irrelevant. No, they're not. We're going to distance ourselves from NATO. No, we're not. We're going to build a wall. No, we're not. Every time the guy talks, you look at it and say, put your money where your mouth is. It doesn't happen.
All right, everybody stand by. We're going to continue our coverage of the breaking news right after this.
It's absolute confidence in 30,000 precision parts, or it isn't. It's inspected by Mercedes-Benz factory-trained technicians, or it isn't. It's backed by an unlimited mileage warranty, or it isn't. For those who never settle, it's either Mercedes-Benz certified pre-owned, or it isn't. The Mercedes-Benz certified pre-owned sales event now through February 28th, only at your authorized Mercedes-Benz dealer.
Make her day with just one touch. With Fancy Feast Creamy Delights, she can have just the right touch of real milk, easily digestible. It makes her favorite entrees even more delightful. Fancy Feast Creamy Delights. Love is in the details.
Liberty Mutual saved us almost $800 when we switched our auto and home insurance.
Liberty did what?
Yeah, they saved us a ton, which gave us a little wiggle room in our budget.
Wish our insurance did that. Then we could get a real babysitter instead of your brother.
Hey, welcome back. This guy, right?
Yes.
Ellen.
That's my robe.
You could save $782 when Liberty stands with you. Liberty Mutual Insurance.
Are you a homeowner with too much credit card debt? Look at the interest rates they charge. 14, 19, even 24%. That's out of control. If you just make the minimum payments, you're hardly putting a dent in those credit card balances. But at Mr. Cooper, we've helped our customers pay off those high interest balances. And now, they pay an average of $538 less a month. That's money they can invest in their homes, their families, and their future. How? We unlocked the equity in their homes with our cash-out refinance loan and consolidated their high-interest debt into one lower monthly payment. Talk to us today. In minutes, an experienced loan officer can tell you if we could lower your monthly payments. Don't give credit card companies so much of your hard-earned money. Let us help you keep more money for you and your family.
Go to MrCooper.com
or call 1-888-513-1981.
Tinnitus affects millions of people, and in a recent study, sufferers tried lipoflavonoid for 60 days as directed. Those who completed the study reported a 32% improvement in their symptoms. Try Lipoflavonoid 60-Day Challenge. If it doesn't work for you, you'll get your money back.
What's with him?
He's happy. Your family's finally eating vegetables, thanks to our Bird's Eye Voila skillet meals.
And they only take 15 minutes to make.
Ow!
Oh. Oh my.
Bird's Eye Voila. So veggie good.
So, that goal you've been saving for, you can do it. We can do this.
At Fidelity, our online planning tools are clear and straightforward, so you can plan for retirement while saving for the things you want to do today.
So do you know anybody who's met on Match?
A girl that I was really interested in found a boyfriend on Match before I could make the conversion. I was actually kind of bummed.
You're not gonna let that happen again, right?
Never again.
Never again.
The deadliest school shooting since Sandy Hook. The students of Stoneman Douglas speak out to demand action and an end to the violence once and for all. Stand Up, a live CNN town hall hosted by Jake Tapper. Wednesday evening, 9 Eastern.
Introducing Pulse. Broken phone? We fixed that. It couldn't be easier. We'll be there in a heartbeat 7 days a week. Check us out at pulse.com. Pulse, for the ups and downs of digital life. Introducing Pulse. New TV to install? We do that. It couldn't be easier. We'll be there in a heartbeat 7 days a week. Check us out at pulse.com. Pulse, for the ups and downs of digital life.
You won't see these folks at the post office. They have businesses to run. They have passions to pursue. How do they avoid trips to the post office? Stamps.com. Mail letters. Ship packages. All the amazing services of the post office right on your computer. Get a 4-week trial plus $100 in extras, including postage and a digital scale. Go to stamps.com/try and never go to the post office again.
American Dynasties, The Kennedys, premieres Sunday, March 11th at 9 on CNN.
We're back with our analysts. We're following the breaking news. And, you know, Phil Mudd, on Sunday, the president tweeted this. I'll put it up on the screen. I never said Russia did not meddle in the election. I said it may be Russia or China or another country or group, or it may be a 400-pound genius sitting in bed and playing with his computer. The Russian hoax was that the Trump campaign colluded with Russia. It never did. That's what the president tweeted over the weekend. But his comments over these past several months tell a very different story. Listen to this.
I don't think anybody knows it was Russia that broke into the DNC. How many times do I have to answer this question?
Can you just say
Russia
yes or no
is
on
a
it?
ruse. This Russia thing with Trump and Russia is a made-up story. The entire thing has been a witch hunt.
The Russia story is a total fabrication.
Russia did not help me, okay? I call it the Russian hoax. They made up the whole Russia hoax.
The one person that he never says a bad word about is Vladimir Putin. I mean, it is just incredible, and this goes back years. He has not acknowledged any sort of wrongdoing on the part of the Russian government, and especially on behalf of Putin. And it remains one of the great mysteries of why he is so insistent on defending Russia and diminishing this scandal, which is now completely apparent to anyone who's paying attention.
In contrast to that, David, he goes after former President Obama. He tweeted this: Obama was president up to and beyond the 2016 election, so why didn't he do something about Russian meddling? So he's accusing his predecessor of not doing enough when he hasn't done really anything over these past 13 months.
Right, couple of things. Well, first, a flaw in the president's logic. If it's a ruse and a hoax, how can President Obama be in the wrong for not addressing said ruse and said hoax? The other thing is that, of course, in October of 2016, President Obama's Department of Homeland Security and Director of National Intelligence issued a joint statement saying the Russians were meddling in the election. It happened to drop the same day as the Access Hollywood tape didn't get the coverage that it otherwise would have.
Let me get quickly from you, Jeffrey Toobin. You got a terrific new article in the New Yorker magazine. You went to Moscow, went to Russia. You did some investigating on the Miss Universe pageant that the president was involved in as a private citizen. Just quickly tell our viewers what you discovered.
Well, you know, it really fits very well in with the news of this weekend that, you know, the president, then candidate, then before that developer Donald Trump has been trying to do business with Russia since the days of the Soviet Union. He first went there in the late 1980s, and finally in 2013 with this oligarch family, the Aguilarovs, they put on the Miss Universe contest, and you saw, you know, how he was trying to gin up business there, even still, always trying to meet with Vladimir Putin. He didn't manage to do it in 2013. And of course, the connections he made with the Aguilarovs led directly to the most direct evidence of collusion that we have so far, which was the meeting in Trump Tower in June of 2016. So the line from Russia through Trump to the 2016 election is direct, and it starts, or it leads very clearly to the sort of bizarre spectacle of the 2013 Miss Universe pageant, which was in a big shopping center outside of Moscow.
Yeah, and you were there. You did some excellent reporting.
Yes.
I recommend people go read the article in the New Yorker. Thanks very much, guys. Stand by. Just ahead, the Florida school shooter in court as more of his victims are laid to rest. We'll have a live report with new information about his mindset, his behavior, and his weapons. Multiple red flags that were missed.
This is food made to sit down for. Slow down for. Put the phone away and use a knife and fork for. And with Panera Catering, it's food worth sharing. Panera, food as it should be.
At Safe Flight Auto Glass, we know that when you're spending time with the grandkids, every minute counts. And you don't have time for a cracked windshield. That's why at Safe Flight, we'll show you exactly when we'll be there with a replacement you can trust. Hold on, sir.
Looks great.
Thanks for choosing Safe Flight.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye. Saving you time so you can keep saving the world.
Safe Flight Repair. Safe Flight Repair.
We are the TV doctors of America, and we may not know much about medicine,
but we know a lot about drama.
We also know that you can avoid drama by getting an annual checkup.
So go, know, and take control of your health.
It could save your life.
Cigna, together all the way.
Introducing the new Infiniti QX80. Infiniti, empower the drive.
Thanks, man.
Imagine if the things you bought every day earned you miles to get to the places you really want to go. With the United Mileage Plus Explorer Card, you'll get a free checked bag, 2 United Club Passes, priority boarding, and earn 50,000 bonus miles after you spend $3,000 on purchases in the first 3 months from account opening. Plus, $0 intro annual fee for the first year, then $95. Learn more at theexplorercard.com.
What's the value of capital? What's critical thinking worth? A basketball costs $14. What's team spirit worth? What's it worth to talk to your mom? What's the value of a walk in the woods? The value of capital is to create not just wealth, but things that matter. Morgan Stanley.
My bladder leakage was making me feel like I couldn't spend time with my grandson. Now, Depend FitFlex has their fastest absorbent material inside, so it keeps me dry and protected. Go to depend.com, get a coupon, and try them for yourself.
Dogs used to hunt to satisfy their cravings. Now, the hunt is over. Peak from Rachel Ray Nutrish with 30% protein and 0% grains. Real beef, chicken, or turkey is the #1 ingredient combined with other nutrient-dense proteins. Satisfy your dog's cravings with protein-rich Peak, one of the specialty recipes from Nutrish. Real recipes, real ingredients, real good.
This is an apple. And this is an apple, and this is an apple. And when you put them all together, you've got a case.
What's a super easy way to tell that your bed is awful? The raw egg test. Now let me explain the eggs. The raw egg test states that the perfect bed will let you put weight on raw eggs without breaking them. Because if a bed can cradle raw eggs while supporting all that weight, it'll also cradle your pressure points while supporting your body for maximum comfort. We're so convinced you'll love Purple. If it doesn't change your life in the first 100 nights, we'll take it back for a complete refund. That's the Purple no pressure guarantee.
I was wondering if an electric toothbrush really cleans better than a manual, and my hygienist says it does. But they're not all the same. Who knew? I had no idea. So she said look for one that's shaped like a dental tool with a round brush head.
Go pro with Oral-B. Oral-B's rounded brush head surrounds each tooth to gently remove more plaque. And unlike Sonicare, Oral-B is the only electric toothbrush brand accepted by the American Dental Association for its effectiveness and safety.
My mouth feels so clean. I'll only use an Oral-B.
Oral-B. Brush like a pro.
Stand Up, a live CNN town hall hosted by Jake Tapper, Wednesday evening, 9 Eastern.
As we follow the breaking news on the Russia investigation, we also have new reporting on the deadly weapons amassed by the school shooter in Florida before he gunned down 17 people. Nikolas Cruz appeared in court today. CNN's Kaylee Hartung is joining us from Parkland, Florida right now. Kaylee, what's the latest?
Well, Wolf, more red flags missed. I was in that courtroom today when the shooter was escorted in by sheriff's deputies, shackled. He kept his head and his eyes down. He only communicated with his public defender by way of nods and very short responses. But the new information we're learning of his troubled behavior didn't come from that brief court appearance.
Nikolas Cruz in court for a procedural hearing today, amid new questions as to how he was able to amass an arsenal of rifles leading up to his attack on Parkland's Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School. A law enforcement source briefed on the investigation says Cruz bought at least 10 rifles in the past year. The buying spree apparently setting off no warning signs with authorities or those who knew him. James and Kimberly Sneed took Cruz in last fall after his mother passed away. They spoke with CNN's Allison Camerata.
He told us he was depressed. We knew he was depressed.
So when you say he was quirky, just give us a sense of what that looked like.
He's just trying to fit in. He just didn't know what to say or when to say it or how to say it, you know, so he'd ask a lot of questions. He'd apologize a lot. If we told him to do something, if he needed to clean up something after himself or something, he'd apologize and said he was sorry. You don't have to be sorry, just do it. It's a roller coaster of emotions.
They told ABC's Good Morning America that he showed no signs that would lead them to believe he could commit such atrocities. They knew Cruz had guns, but demanded that he keep them in a safe.
I thought I had the only key to the gun safe.
And had he ever asked you beforehand to use a gun, to take it out of the safe?
He asked twice. Once I said yes because he wanted to clean it. And I don't know which gun he wanted to clean, but he said he wanted to clean a gun. I said okay, and another time he asked and I told him no. It wasn't a good time.
And why did you tell him no?
I don't know what the situation was in the house. It wasn't a good time.
Though they knew of one Instagram account, they say they were unaware of the others, which contained alarming images and racist rants.
If we had known anything about that, he wouldn't have even been in our home. That wouldn't even been an option.
This as chilling images like this continue to emerge. Surveillance video showing the confessed killer walking down the street just minutes after the attack. A 2016 report from the Florida Department of Children and Families, citing Cruz's now deceased mother, revealed that he suffered from depression, ADHD, and autism. She also told the department he began cutting his arms following a breakup. The report ultimately found that the final level of risk was, quote, low, because he was living with his mother and receiving in-home mental health services. Meanwhile, services continue for the victims.
Scott saved the lives of his students.
Mourners gathered to honor teacher Scott Beagle. Hailed as a hero, he was killed after unlocking his classroom to take in students fleeing the shooter. Others taking to the streets with hopes of effecting change to bring about an end to these tragic events.
Also included in that report from the Department of Children and Families, record that Cruz's adopted mother told investigators she'd seen Cruz draw on his backpack Nazi symbols and write the racist language, "I hate N-words." She said when she asked him why he would do such a thing, he claimed to not know what they meant. Wolf.
All right, Kaylee, thank you very much. Kaylee Hartung down in Florida. CNN will explore the demands for action against gun violence during a town hall event. We're going to hear from students, parents, community members affected by the Florida school shooting, as well as local politicians, including Senators Marco Rubio and Bill Nelson. The Florida governor, Rick Scott, and President Trump, by the way, they have declined the invitation. Wednesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern. That's it for me. Aaron Burnett on Front starts right now.
Next, breaking news. President Trump is arriving back at the White House to a flurry of Russia developments. The special counsel is now looking at Jared Kushner's links to foreign investors. And new details about the Florida school shooter. He obtained 10 rifles before shooting, cut his own arms, and posted the video on Snapchat. Why were there so many missed signs? Plus, Trump's obsession with Oprah. Why he just can't quit her. Let's go out front. Good evening, I'm Dana Bash in for Aaron Burnett. Out front tonight, breaking news on the president's son-in-law. CNN has learned that special counsel Robert Mueller is expanding his investigation to look into Jared Kushner's discussion during the presidential transition with foreign investors. Mueller is going beyond Kushner's Russian contacts and digging into his attempts to secure financing for his real estate businesses and other foreign investors, including China. President Trump returned to the White House moments ago after a long weekend in Florida at Mar-a-Lago, arriving amid a flurry of developments in the Russia investigation. After a weekend Twitter storm about the investigation, Trump was back at it again on this President's Day. He tweeted, "Obama was president up to and beyond the 2016 election, so why didn't he do something about Russian meddling?" Now, the special counsel's interest in the finances of the extended Trump family could be more of a signal to come. That's exactly what the former director of national intelligence, James Clapper, predicted when he told me he sees more shoes to drop.
I think another thing that we haven't seen much of is financial entanglements between the Trump organization before the election and then during it. I have to think that the special counsel and his team are looking at that simply by looking at the composition of who's on that team.
Shimon Prokupecz was part of CNN's team that is breaking this story. He's out front tonight. Shimon, what exactly is Mueller looking at?
Hi, Dana. So we've learned that the special counsel, Robert Mueller, is now asking questions about Jared Kushner's personal This is the first wants to know about